A week ago I posted my first thoughts and impressions on the new Leica Noctilux M50mm f1.2, and that lens comes in two versions. One is the standard anodized black, which is available in Leica stores and Leica certified retailers, and this one here is the special limited edition in silver chrome, limited to 100 units worldwide, and was already sold out before it actually hit the market. Everything I'm going to say in this video applies of course to the black version as well as to the limited edition. And what I want to do is I want to quickly share my impressions about the handling of the lens and how the shooting experience was, and then I want to also share sample images, and I can already say I enjoyed shooting with that lens a million times. That's clearly one of the best lenses I've ever had on a camera in my hands. And now let's kick off the video. I was shooting the new 50mm Noctilux on my Leica M10-R, and that is clearly a fantastic combo. And we already talked in my first video, by the way, I'm going to link this video down below in the info box, about the build quality. Clearly nothing less we expect from Leica. This is a fantastic build quality here. And if you look at the different elements here, so let's look at the aperture ring first. The aperture ring is firm enough so that you don't accidentally turn the aperture ring, but it's also smooth enough that you can easily operate it. And that is something I really appreciate and enjoy always on this Leica M series lenses. And the focus ring is buttery smooth, but also firm enough that nothing accidentally gets out of control here. And I think that's always very good, but it's something we are used to in terms of quality from Leica M series lenses. An observation I made, which I really don't like, is actually that you cannot operate it with the lens hood if you have the lens cap on, and you need to remove the lens cap, and then you can mount your lens hood, and then you are good to go. But then if you stop shooting and want to protect the glass in front of the lens, you actually have to remove the lens hood again. So that clearly is a bit inconvenient and is calling for a solution. Now, if you are an owner of the black version of the Noctilux, you don't have that problem, because there are plenty of lens caps with a filter size of 49mm you can use, which will fit, and which will fit in combination with the lens hood. So here is one I found in one of my boxes from Sony. And if I now take the lens, remove the original silver chrome lens cap here and mount the Sony lens cap, then there is plenty of space here, and the lens hood will fit over that combination of lens cap and Noctilux. So if you have the black version, it will not cause a problem. You will find one of these lens caps probably in a neutral way. Don't use a Sony one. Well, if you're a Sony fanboy, Sony doesn't harm. That's okay, and you can solve that problem. For the silver chrome version is a bit more tricky. And a friend in Berlin actually posted me a few links where I might find what I'm looking for. For the time being, I don't have a solution for that. A last remark in that context is the following. If you own the Leica Noctilux in the anodized black version, make sure if you are looking for that lens cap solution that you don't go for the original Leica one. And I'm going to demonstrate this very quickly. If you look at the Sony 49mm filter size lens cap and you compare it with the Leica 49mm lens cap, you see that the Leica one is significantly larger when it comes to the diameter. And if you turn them around, you see this confirmed here. There is an additional bezel here on the Leica lens cap, which will again make it not fitting with the lens hood. So I can demonstrate this here. So let's get the Leica lens cap on. And now again, you see that lens hood is not getting over it because you have that additional bezel here. So if you are looking for a solution and you follow my advice to get, let's say, a non-branded or a Sony or from some other brand 49mm lens cap on your black Noctilux, make sure it's not the original from Leica, because that one is too big and will not fit and will not solve the problem with the lens hood. The last remark before looking into the spec sheet of the new Noctilux 50mm f1.2 is concerning the rangefinder. And I always get questions from people asking me how to best use the optical viewfinder and the rangefinder technique for finding focus. And for people who have difficulties with that, you don't need to give up. There is a solution, and the solution is coming with the electronic viewfinder, which you can mount on the hot shoe of an M series rangefinder camera. And it's called the Visoflex. It is an original accessory from Leica. You can mount it on the hot shoe, and then you are basically back in a normal system camera setup. So you have focus peaking here, what you also have on the LCD, of course. You get exposure preview, you can have your eye on the viewfinder, and you can shoot as if this would not be a rangefinder. Of course, for those of you who are Leica lovers like me, this is a sacrilege, because that's why you have this camera for. It's a rangefinder and you actually use the optical viewfinder to find focus. But, you know, if this is the problem which holds you back for shooting with a rangefinder, then the Visoflex is a good solution. Looking at the specs of the lens as we get them from Leica, we find the normal angles here for a normal focal length of 50mm. We see that in the optical construction of the lens, they included 2 aspherical surfaces, which is helping, of course, under more difficult light conditions. You have a focus range from 1 meter to infinity, so you cannot, in the same way as for the Noctilux 50mm f/0.95, get overly close to your subject. And this in turn, of course, has consequences for your largest reproduction ratio, which is 1 to 17.7. So this lens per se and standalone is not suitable for macro photography, but if you use the macro adapter for Leica M lenses, you clearly can use it for close-ups. Then we have 16 blades. You will see the effect of these blades later when we look into sample images in the bokeh if you shoot wide open. And the filter size, as I mentioned previously in the video, is 49mm. The weight of the lens, which is a data point we don't get in that spec sheet, is 405 grams. So not too heavy, but also not as lightweighted as some of the other Leica M series lenses. What I want to do next is providing a first impression on sample images by playing a very short clip with images compiled into a slideshow, but then of course I will go into Lightroom and provide much more detailed comments on the performance of the lens. Let's now go through a few of these sample images to provide further comments and observations here. And this image here from my model here was shot widest open at f1.2. Don't get confused by an f1.7 here on display. There is only an optical sensor on the mount of Leica M lenses, and then in the camera body, Leica is doing in the software or the firmware of the camera a best effort guess what the aperture might have been. So this was shot at f1.2, widest open, and the background blurriness is nice. It's actually shot at an ISO of 1000, and as you guys know from other videos on my channel, the Leica M10-R has perfect noise behavior. What I like here is that you see indicated in the background other people sitting around that table here. So that image was taken in a restaurant. And that's something I personally like, because if you would have shot this with the other Noctilux 50mm widest open at f0.95, you would hardly get any sense what's going on in the background. But at f1.2 you actually get some indication and nevertheless have that Leica typical 3D pop of my model in the foreground here, clearly distinguished from the background, and I think that I like a lot. It's also quite sharp if you look at the eye here. So the left hand eye was where I placed my focus point, and I think that image looks really good. Here another sample of this type, again shot widest open at f1.2, exposure time 1/60 seconds. ISO 400 this time, and again you see here in the background that person indicated who is sitting on the other table, which gives you that tiny little bit of information about what the scene is all about. If I would have blurred this out completely with an aperture of f0.95 like on the other 50mm Noctilux, you would not get that additional piece of information here. And again, it's a very sharp image, looks good, and I think in general the expression, the colors, the way the image is rendered, I think that is this typical Leica look, which many people make so obsessed about Leica gear, and again a good image. Here is an image shot in a hotel, and here I closed the aperture a bit more because I also wanted to have a little bit of structure on the background here on that painting. And again, the image is super crisp, super sharp, the way the face is rendered, the skin is appearing, the coloring, all totally to my liking. I really like that combo, the Leica M10-R together with the new Noctilux. It's just a fantastic combination of a perfect lens with a perfect rangefinder series camera. Here is now an image again shot widest open at f1.2, which I wanted to use to best possible illustrate how shallow the depth of field really is. And this is taken at a car dealer in Switzerland, and if you zoom in, here is where the focus was sitting, and here on the left hand side and here on the right hand side, sharpness is already fading out. So you get a good impression about the shallow depth of field you get when you shoot the new Noctilux widest open at f1.2. And just to be clear, I was not visiting that car dealer to purchase a car. I was there to shoot the cars because I wanted to test that lens. And here I was shooting with an aperture more close. That's, if I remember correctly, an aperture of f2.0. The focus was sitting on the front side of the car, but nevertheless you get this dreamy look surrounding the car, which I personally like a lot in that image here. Here an image taken in Zurich, and here I want to provide some data points how the lens is performing if you really close it down or stop it down. Here I was shooting at an aperture of f5.6, which is one of my most favorite apertures when it comes to landscape and architecture on most of the lenses I own. And cropping in a bit more deeply here, you see how sharp that lens actually is if you stop it down. I mean, at f5.6, this is really a great result. You see the clock here with 10 minutes before 1 p.m. You see here all the details on the houses. This is a super sharp lens. If you stop it down for landscape, architecture and what have you, looks really, really good. You get lots of details in these images, and clearly combined with the 40 megapixel sensor of the Leica M10-R, you have deep crop optionality in the shots you will take. Here a second example where I stopped down the aperture to f5.6. This is now at an ISO of 101/1000 seconds because it was a bright winter day. And if I crop deeply into that image here, absolutely nothing to complain. Sharpness, representation of colors, corner to corner, top-notch quality, no matter where you crop into your image. And then last but not least, I said before, this camera is not good for close-ups, and that's true based on the specs of the lens. But if you use it on a camera with a lot of resolution reserves, like the Leica M10R, you nevertheless can use crop in post-processing to actually get closer to your subject. And here is the image shot in Zurich on a frozen fountain. And the next image was then already cropped in a little bit to some extent in post. And here I cropped in a bit more radically to 3664 times 2423 pixels. And nevertheless, if you zoom in, it is absolutely nice in terms of quality. So this is at least suitable for social media or other opportunities where you want to show off your images. I stop here and hope you liked that little demonstration of what that new Noctilux 50mm f1.2 is capable of doing. It's a fantastic lens. My conclusion is very clear and very firm. It's in particular nice on the Leica M10R, but it will be as nice on the Leica M10P, and what I'm really curious to try out on the Leica M10 monochrome, of course. If you liked that video, don't forget to drop me a thumbs up as an appreciation of my work. Thanks for watching, stay safe and healthy, and peace out.